What would you do if you had the power to change the life of someone in need, but didn't know where to start? This was the question echoing in Barron Trump's mind, a young man who, despite all the fame and privileges his family provided him, felt a strong connection to the world around him. He had always dreamed of making a difference, but often felt lost amidst the grandeur of the life he led. One morning, while walking through the busy streets of New York City, Barron spotted a scene that touched him deeply. A mother named Sarah was sitting on the sidewalk holding her baby in her arms. Her gaze was one of despair and vulnerability, reflecting the harsh reality of living on the streets. Sarah had lost her job and, with it, her home. The daily struggle to feed her young son, Lucas, was becoming increasingly difficult. Barron couldn't ignore the pain she carried, a pain that made him reflect on his own worries and dilemmas. The environment around him was chaotic and relentless. People hurried by, often oblivious to the presence of the mother and her baby. Barron felt an uncontrollable urge to help. He approached her, his heart racing, and began to talk to Sarah. As he listened to her story, Barron realized that her situation was much more complex than it seemed. It wasn't just a matter of lacking money, but of a system that often failed to support those who needed it most. While they talked, Barron remembered his own challenges, such as the pressure of living in the spotlight and the heavy expectations he carried. He questioned whether he could truly make a difference in Sarah and Lucas's lives. Was it possible for him, a privileged young man, to be an agent of change? Doubt lingered, but the determination to help outweighed his fear. By the end of their conversation, Barron made an impulsive decision. He decided not only to help Sarah with money, but also to look for ways to connect her with resources that could provide long-term support. The idea of creating a program to help mothers in similar situations began to form in his mind. What started as a casual encounter transformed into a call to action, and Barron knew he was just at the beginning of a journey that would change not only Sarah's life, but also his own. Barron Trump felt the growing pressure of his decision. After his conversation with Sarah, he felt excited, but also overwhelmed by the responsibility he had taken on. The idea of creating a program to help mothers in similar situations seemed grand, but he didn't know where to start. He had money and influence, but that didn't guarantee he could change someone's life in a meaningful way. In the following days, Barron dedicated himself to researching the situation of homeless individuals and the challenges they faced in obtaining support. He began visiting shelters and help centers, listening to the stories of other mothers and their children. The reality he encountered was far more complex than he had imagined. Many of these women not only struggled with a lack of resources, but also faced mental health issues, substance abuse, and a lack of support networks. During one of these visits, Barron met Linda, a social worker who worked at a shelter. She was a strong and determined woman who had dedicated her life to helping those in need. Linda became an important ally in Barron's journey. She shared with him the difficulties she faced in her work, such as lack of funding and the stigma surrounding homeless individuals. Barron realized that to make a difference, he would need not only a plan, but also a team willing to fight for this cause. However, the pressure in his personal life was mounting. His parents, especially his father, had high expectations for his future. They expected Barron to follow in the family's footsteps, focusing on his education and career, away from social issues. The idea of getting involved in a cause so distant from the world he had grown up in was not well received by them. With each conversation, Barron felt he was drifting away from what his family considered important. This division between his aspirations and his family's expectations left him troubled. Additionally, the pressure to maintain his public image made everything even more complicated. Barron began to receive criticism on social media, with some people questioning his intentions and attacking his privileged background. He felt vulnerable and exposed, as if he were trying to navigate an arena filled with hungry lions. The doubt about whether he could truly make a difference grew each day, and he began to question whether his actions were genuine or merely an attempt to distance himself from a life of privilege. In search of support, Barron decided to organize a fundraising event for the shelter where he met Sarah and Linda. The idea was simple: bring together influential and compassionate people to discuss ways to help homeless mothers. However, as the event approached, he faced a series of obstacles. One of the main sponsors withdrew their support, claiming that the cause was not interesting enough. Barron felt discouraged and began to think that he might not have what it takes to make a difference. Linda, however, was there to remind him of the impact his efforts had already made. She encouraged him to keep going, explaining that even small actions could have a profound effect on people's lives. Barron started to realize that his journey was not just about raising funds, but about creating a space where life stories could be heard and respected. As the day of the event drew closer, Barron found himself in a sea of emotions. He was anxious, but also hopeful. However, on the eve of the event, a storm hit the city, causing floods and mass cancellations. Frustration took over him. All his hopes seemed to crumble at once. Barron doubted how to move forward. He questioned whether he was destined to fail, and if he had made a mistake by trying to help. On the morning of the event, as he watched the rain fall, Barron decided that he would not give up. He remembered Sarah and all the mothers he had met. With Linda's help, he organized a live broadcast of the event, allowing people to participate from home. Surprisingly, the reach was greater than he could have imagined. People from different parts of the city began to donate, and stories of overcoming and resilience started to echo. The event was a success, and Barron felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that change did not come only from big actions, but also from the ability to listen to and support people in their struggles. The journey was just beginning, and although there were many challenges ahead, Barron was determined to continue. He had found a purpose that made him feel more connected to himself and the world around him. Sarah and Lucas's lives could change, and he was ready to be part of that transformation. Barron Trump was at a critical point in his journey. The fundraising event had been an unexpected success, but he still carried the pain of rejection and doubt. One day after the event, while reviewing the donations and messages of support, he received a call that would change everything. Linda, his ally at the shelter, was in a state of panic. A fire had hit the shelter during the night, devastating the place and leaving many mothers and children homeless. Barron's heart raced. He remembered Sarah, Lucas, and all the stories he had heard. The news of the fire hit Barron like a blow. He felt helpless, as if all his previous efforts had not been enough to protect those he was beginning to consider part of his life. The feeling of failure engulfed him. He had money, influence, and a platform. But what did that really mean if he could not prevent this tragedy? Guilt began to creep into his mind, and he questioned whether he had done enough. He recalled the criticisms he had faced on social media and the doubt that had followed him since the beginning. It was a decisive moment. Barron knew he needed to act, but the idea of facing more challenges terrified him. He thought about giving up, about returning to the safety of the world he knew. But looking at the phone, he saw Linda's name again. He took a deep breath and decided he could not walk away now. He did not want to be just someone who talks about change. He wanted to be part of it. With a new sense of urgency, Barron organized an emergency meeting with Linda and other shelter collaborators. As he prepared for the meeting, his mind was filled with questions. How could he help? What could he do to ensure that those mothers and children had a safe place again? Upon arriving at the destroyed shelter, the scene was devastating. Barron felt a mix of sadness and determination. He saw familiar faces, women he knew who were now lost, not knowing what to do next. During the meeting, Barron shared his ideas, and, to his surprise, everyone was willing to come together. Together, they created an ambitious plan to urgently raise funds and find a new location for the shelter. He realized that although the situation was dire, there was a collective strength among those present. This experience made him see that often true change comes from the unity of people, not just from individual actions. That night, Barron laid down with a renewed sense of purpose. He began to reflect on his own life and what success meant to him. The wealth and prestige that had always been part of his life seemed insignificant in light of the reality those mothers faced. He remembered the criticisms he had received, but now he understood that what mattered was empathy and the ability to act for others. In the following days, Barron became a driving force in the recovery of the shelter. He made connections, organized events, and most importantly, began to listen to the stories of the mothers who were now in an even more vulnerable situation. He learned that each of them had a past, a story of struggle and overcoming. This made him rethink his own struggles and how he approached his responsibilities. Life was not just about his journey, but about how he could use his position to help others find their own paths. The fire, which initially seemed to be an endless tragedy, transformed into a catalyst for change. Barron began to realize that even in the darkest situations, there were opportunities to create something new and better. He understood that true wealth was not measured in money, but in the ability to touch the lives of those around him. As the reconstruction efforts progressed, Barron felt more connected than ever to the community he had started to support. He realized that his journey was just beginning, and although there were challenges ahead, he was now more determined than ever to make a difference, not only in the lives of Sarah and Lucas, but in the lives of many others who needed hope and support. Life had taught him a valuable lesson. True change comes from the heart and a genuine desire to help others. Barron Trump was facing a challenging moment in his life. After the fire that devastated the shelter he was helping, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The pain of rejection and the doubt that accompanied him were intensified by the tragedy. However, instead of letting himself be overwhelmed, he decided it was time to take action. He realized he needed to overcome his limitations, not just as a young person with resources, but as someone who could make a difference in the lives of others. In the days that followed, Barron dedicated himself to listening to the stories of the affected mothers and children. He realized that these stories were not just narratives of pain, but also of strength and resilience. Each account inspired him to keep going, even when the difficulties seemed insurmountable. Through these interactions, he began to trust himself more and understand that true leadership comes from empathy. He learned that he didn't have to do everything alone. Unity could be a powerful force. While organizing fundraising events, Barron had to confront his fears and insecurities. He remembered the criticisms he had faced in the past, but instead of letting them deter him, he began to see failures as learning opportunities. He realized that each mistake, each obstacle, was part of a larger path leading him to a new perspective. This shift in mindset helped him rebuild himself as a person. Barron now understood that success was not just about money or status. He found fulfillment in the small victories, like seeing the smiles of children who found a new home or hearing mothers express gratitude for the support. True wealth lay in touching lives, and that became his new goal. He felt more connected to the community, and this connection brought new meaning to his life. Reflecting on his journey, Barron recognized that each challenge had taught him something valuable. He learned the importance of resilience and the ability to rise again after setbacks. Life, with all its difficulties, presented a constant opportunity to grow and evolve. He now knew that true personal transformation occurred when one faced pain and sought a greater purpose. The friendships he made during this time were also fundamental. Barron joined forces with people who shared his vision and were willing to fight alongside him. These connections helped him see the world in a new way and recognize that together they could create real impact. With each step he took, he felt stronger and clearer about what truly mattered. From that tragedy, Barron Trump became not only an advocate for the shelter, but a true agent of change. Barron Trump was at the center of the fundraising event he had organized, surrounded by people who believed in the cause. The atmosphere was tense. The fundraising had not met the necessary goal to rebuild the shelter. Barron felt the pressure build as he looked at the anxious faces of those present. He remembered every story he had heard, every smile he had seen, and every tear he had wiped away. Deep down, he knew that the lives of many children and mothers depended on that moment. When he stepped onto the stage, his heart raced. He felt vulnerable, yet stronger than ever. With a trembling voice, he began to speak. He shared his experiences, his struggles, and how those mothers and children had inspired him to become a better version of himself. He talked about the importance of not giving up and fighting for those who could not fight for themselves. But in the middle of his speech, emotion overwhelmed him. Barron hesitated and swallowed hard, remembering a child who had lost everything in the fire. Tears began to stream down his face, and he saw everyone's eyes turn to him with compassion. At that moment, he realized he was not alone. The audience came together, and a wave of support began to grow. People started raising their hands, offering donations, and the atmosphere changed. What seemed like an impending defeat transformed into a powerful unity. Barron felt that he had finally found his true strength. He was not just raising money, he was building a community. And as he looked into the eyes of those who supported him, he understood that true success was not merely about achieving financial goals, but about touching lives and creating bonds. From that day on, he knew he was on the right path, ready to face any challenge that might come next. Barron, looking at the crowd that supported him, felt a wave of gratitude and responsibility. He realized that his journey had not been just about fundraising, it had become a life mission. Each donation, each shared tear, each renewed smile represented not just a desire to help, but also a genuine connection among people. Barron became a tireless advocate for his cause, understanding that true success was not measured in numbers, but in the ability to touch lives and inspire hope. Through his experience, he learned that even in the face of challenges, unity and compassion can change the course of a story. Barron left that event not just as a determined young man, but as a leader who knew that true strength lies in caring and taking action. He was ready to continue this journey, knowing that every small gesture could make a big difference. Barron's story is a powerful reminder that we can all be agents of change. Share your experiences and reflections in the comments and inspire others to do the same. Together, we can transform lives. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe to the channel. Your interaction is essential for us to continue bringing inspiring content like this. The time to act is now.